Hello everyone, I'm Pallavi Bhatt. I'm very glad to be back with you again, and I would like to thank Dr. Aparnath for giving me this opportunity once again to talk to you. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic really, and something that we kind of dread all the time. It's one of the most difficult things that we face, and that is negotiation. So today we will talk about how to empower the negotiator in you. So essentially it is about negotiation skills. So by the end of this session, I hope you will be able to realize that it really is a skill. And when we talk about a skill, that means it is something that you need not be born with. Often you're not born with, but it is something that you can learn, practice and master. So it reminds me of a story, and I'd like to begin our interaction with that. There was this family in a small town, and they fell in love with a small lamb, and they wanted to get the lamb home. That's what they did. The lamb was very adorable. It used to gallop around, jump around, and everybody loved the lamb. Now as time passed by, this lamb grew into this big goat. Have you ever seen that goat with the big horns and that beard? It's quite big and quite strong, and so it became a nuisance inside the house. There was not enough space, it was dirtying the place and people couldn't handle it. So the mother told the father, please get this lamb out of this place. Father, being the man of the house, said, of course, whatever you say. So father goes up to the goat, starts pushing it. The goat doesn't budge. Tries to pull it, it doesn't budge. Tries kicking it, yelling at it, it just doesn't budge. And finally the goat had had enough, and it gave a big nudge with its head to the father, and the father went flying. And finally the father was like, wow, I can't get this thing moving. What do I do? And the mother said, hold on, let me handle this. Mother comes up to the goat and very gently, calmly catches hold of the beard and tugs it. And without any effort, the goat follows the mother, and she is able to take the goat out into the barn and lock it over there. So that is to say that every negotiation is a different animal. You have to know what this animal is most sensitive to. The goat was sensitive to its beard being tugged. So negotiation is a very fluid process. We fear it very often because our emotions get involved, our ego gets involved, we become defensive and often very nervous. We're not able to speak up enough, or we speak too much. All of these things make the task very difficult. And I also say that this is one of the most difficult tasks that we do, because to become a good negotiator, we need to have a very good understanding of the human nature. So it's almost like having a lock which has got 3 dials, the combination lock. And those 3 dials have to come in the correct setting for you to be able to unlock it. So one is the logic, the other is the emotion, and third is the reputation. Okay, so it is logic, emotion and reputation that make up the negotiation, how you're going to negotiate. Now basically any negotiation that you are conducting could be a planned negotiation or an unplanned negotiation. Now if you find yourself in an unplanned negotiation, you're caught off guard, the likelihood is that you're not prepared, of course, and you would function from your emotions. On the other hand, if it's a planned negotiation, we tend to think that, okay, if we function from logic, if we give enough reasoning, we would be able to get what we want. However, that is not true. But all the same, depending on our motive of the negotiation, depending on the context, the situation of the negotiation, all negotiations basically come into 2 categories. The first one is known as distributive. The other one is known as integrative. So people who would engage in a distributive kind of a negotiation, these would be people who do not have a very high regard for the relationship which is there between the 2 parties for whatever reason. Maybe they have just met, or maybe the relationship is not that important. Maybe they don't have a long-term association. So people engaging in distributive relationship would be focused only on results. That means they will be very assertive about what they want. It is also known as hard bargaining, or win-lose bargaining, where one party wins, and for one party to win, the other party must lose. And it can be quite disturbing for the other party, which might be the weaker of the softer party. The other category is that of integrative. Integrative negotiation means that people engaging in this kind of behavior and negotiation, they are concerned about the quality of the relationship, the longevity of the relationship, or improvement of the relationship. So their primary concern is about being cooperative. Their focus is on relationships. So if you find yourself making concessions, adjusting, etc., giving in because you care for the relationship, then you are indulging in an integrative kind of a negotiation. Now, when I say distributive and integrative, please do not get me wrong. Either one of them or neither one of them is good or bad. They both have their place, and that is what I'm going to point out to you in this session, that each different style has its benefits. The beauty would lie in you being able to consciously choose a style instead of unconsciously falling into a particular pattern. Now, depending upon how assertive you are and how much focused you are on the results, and relationship is not really a quotient or parameter, or how focused you are on cooperativeness and the relationship, there are basically 5 kind of styles that exist. The first style is the avoiding style. Believe it or not, avoiding is also a style of negotiation. Some people may automatically, naturally have this style of negotiation. That means they may be uncomfortable in situations of negotiation and they would avoid any kind of negotiation. On the other hand, the style can be actively used. So you can choose to use this style. I'll come to that later when that can be useful for you. Now, people who are avoiding, they don't pay a lot of attention to relationship also. Neither do they communicate their desires or needs at all. So their cooperativeness quotient is also less. Their assertiveness quotient is also very less. Basically, they just don't get into a negotiation. The second style is the accommodating style. Now, the accommodating style is very high on cooperativeness. So this type of a negotiator, in any situation where there is negotiation, is likely to give in completely to the needs or desires of the other party, because they care a lot about the relationship. It could be a professional relationship, it could be a personal relationship. Maybe an organization wants to retain a very old client that has brought in a lot of business for them in the past. So the organization may completely accommodate to an unreasonable demand that the other party is making. So even in that case, it is an accommodating style. The third style is that of compromise. Compromise is the middle area. It is halfway where cooperativeness is concerned and halfway where assertiveness is concerned. So in this, both the parties come halfway. So it is a 50-50. So both the parties get come to a solution which is more or less good for them. They both are more or less happy with the situation. It may not be an optimal situation, but it kind of works for both the parties. And the fourth category is that of competitive style. Competitive, just like the name says, it's a very competitive kind of a negotiation in which one party completely runs down the other party. And if both the parties are taking up the same style, there's going to be clash. That means there'll be no solution. But if one party is softer, is weaker, the other party will dominate completely. Why? Because here the focus is completely on results. The focus is completely on asserting that I want this, this should be done, without any concern about what do you want. And the fifth last style is that of collaboration. It is the ideal form of negotiation, if one may say. It is about win-win, where both the parties come up with an optimal solution. In this kind of a style, the assertiveness is very high. At the same time, cooperativeness is also very high. That means the parties involved in the negotiation would be not only stating what they want, but would also be talking about what do you want. And they would think out of the box. They will try and come up with a solution which is creative and which is an optimal solution for both the parties. So these are the 5 styles of negotiation that I just told you about. First is the avoiding, second is accommodating, third is compromising, fourth is competitive, and fifth is the collaboration. Now collaboration definitely sounds like the ideal. However, in many situations, maybe not. So we'll talk about that also, the utility of each of the styles. Now, as I talk about these 5 styles, we must understand that each one of us is predisposed to using one style a lot more than the other. Now, that depends on the kind of our conditioning is there, the kind of experiences we've had, so as to say, the kind of personality that we may have. So some of us, maybe we are completely uncomfortable even getting into negotiation. Some of us, just when somebody starts asking for something, we give in. Some of us would say, no, let's come halfway, half yours and half mine, compromising. Somebody says, no, I don't care what you want. I'm going to do what I want, competing. And somebody would say, okay, let everybody be happy. Let's listen to everybody and come up with a solution that everybody is happy with. Now, it's important for you to understand what is your style of negotiation. Now again, as you understand, when you look back the kind of interactions you've had, when you understand what is your style of negotiation, I want to tell you that that need not be your style of negotiation. So when we're talking about empowering the negotiator in you, this is what is the learning that I want you to take away with you. You need not get stuck in one style of negotiation. It's almost like you have a buffet of styles, the 5 styles that I tell you. And you look at the buffet and say, okay, right now I'd like to have this style of negotiation. And that is how you will empower yourself as a negotiator. Now, when is a competing style useful? So if you may recall, I said competing style is a hard bargaining kind of a style where it is a win-lose. So the person who has competing style will be very firm about what they want. However, this is a very useful style whenever you are in a situation where some tough decisions have to be made. Some very important decisions have to be made, maybe about some big finances are involved, maybe some legal issues are involved, some safety issues are involved. So mostly in your work scenario or even in your personal life, you will have to be able to learn how to put your foot down and be assertive. So in any situation which demands for you to be forceful and be very assertive, make sure you use the style which I described to you as the competing style. It is a win-lose style. So if you are going to win, yes, the other person is going to lose. So you need not feel bad about it. It was the requirement of the situation. If you're in a managerial position, if you're heading an organization, you're heading a team, there would be many times when you're required to take a tough decision. That does not mean you're a bad person. It is just the need of the hour. So it would be highly advisable for you to use the competing style where you don't focus on only how this will affect my relationship with my colleague or my junior or my team. That decision just has to be taken. So let's say some cost cuttings are there or the pink slip has to be given for some reasons. You'll have to take the tough call, and there the negotiation will have to be my way or highway. Secondly, the avoiding style that we spoke about. When can that be useful? Now that can be useful and you can use it actively whenever maybe situation is very sensitive, where if you get involved in the negotiation, it can only get worse. So in that case, maybe let's say you're dealing with a customer who is very angry and needs to vent out things. So maybe you will just avoid the negotiation for some time till the time the person cools down. Okay, so or maybe to even cut your losses. Maybe you're already going downhill where some kind of an agreement is concerned, financial concerns are there. So to further talk about it, further bring up things, it will only harm you. So it will be advisable that you completely avoid the negotiation for things to settle down. In such situations, there can be, it is advisable to use your avoiding style of negotiation. Also, when there is little chance of success or maybe there is a cost cutting, there are challenges concerning the cost, etc., where maybe even relationship is more important, where let it be, the person is fine, whatever the person is saying, let it be. So You can actively use this kind of a style. Next is the accommodating style. When can you use this? Very obviously, here the relationship is very important. So maybe it's a very important business association of yours, or somebody who is far more powerful than you, where maybe they can cause a lot of harm to you. So to a certain extent, you have to be able to use an accommodating style. So in a situation where you're negotiating, to be able to preserve the relationship, to improve the relationship, to sustain the relationship, here you could use the accommodating style. Also to even minimize losses. So you just agree with the other party. That does not mean you're going to be the loser in the long run. What will you end up doing? You will end up saving the relationship, and which you can encash later on. Also, the accommodating style can be used to gain social favors. So you accommodate now so that later you can ask for something. So this is a very tactical style as well. So you have to be wise enough to see that, okay, if I accommodate now, later maybe I can ask for a certain concession that I have been looking for. Compromising style, the usefulness is whenever, let's say, the two parties are equally powerful and both are equally strong, they're equally important. So no one party will dominate, but if either one tries to dominate, there will be a conflict. So it is advisable for both the parties to understand that and come to a middle ground. Also, where time is a concern, maybe a temporary solution has to be. So maybe you want to meet a deadline, and you're negotiating with another person, another team, another organization. So you can come up with a temporary solution using a compromising style and say that, okay, for the time being, let's agree upon this, and later we can sort it out in a better manner. And where also this is useful when the competition or collaboration maybe is not working out. So then again you can go in for a competing style. Lastly is the collaboration style. It's a win-win approach. That means both the parties are optimally happy. And this is a zone of creative solutions. However, I must warn you, collaborators can be so excited about coming up with a new solution that they can end up wasting a lot of time. So you have to be careful about not getting running away with letting your thoughts run away with you, or creativity run away with you. It is also about recognizing individual differences. So that means collaborating style is very good to be sustaining, developing, strengthening the relationship. Also, it is very good for you because you are validating your own needs. Like I said in the beginning, it is high on assertiveness, and also it is high on cooperativeness. This is also an approach where people attack the problem and not the people, right? They don't look at the other party as an enemy or an adversary. So now that's the gist of the 5 styles that you have available. Like I said before, it is nice to know that you actually have a buffet of styles. You need not get stuck in one style. Your negotiation style is a different animal every time, like I said in the beginning. So choose which style is useful for this particular situation. You need not get trapped in one particular style. Also, you get better and better at it by practicing it more and more. So start speaking up, start using these styles. I'll also talk about different tactics that you can apply. But in any case, you can get better at negotiation. You can become a better negotiator if you are well prepared. So now I'm going to talk about the 10 steps that go into preparing for a negotiation. That means even before you have gone into negotiation, if the situation is important for you, you would prepare according to the 10 steps that I'm going to tell you now. If you want, you can write them down, and later if you want to negotiate for your salary, maybe for a rent, for a raise in your wherever you are, from a promotion, etc., wherever, you can actually follow these 10 steps. So the first step to negotiation, preparing for a negotiation, is actually prepare yourself and your team. So this is assuming that you are going in for a planned negotiation. So let's say your organization is maybe collaborating or having a tie-up or a merger with, let's say, another organization. So you would be there and your team would be there. It's very important to prepare yourself and your team. I'll talk separately about how to prepare also. Second is about knowing the party, the other party. In negotiation, information is power. The team which has more information will have more power. The third step is to know the big picture. That means you have to be aware, you have to be conscious about how this particular negotiation will affect the bigger picture. Let's say, how will it affect the profits of your organization? How will it affect the public image of your organization? What is the image or public image of the other organization? So you have what is the maybe national scenario? What is the market share of your organization and the other organization? So it's a bigger picture that you must be aware of before you get into the negotiation. The fourth step is to identify the objectives. So if you don't write it down, it's almost like saying a goal not written is a goal not achieved. So unless you have the objectives very clearly set down, the likelihood of you achieving those is very little. The fifth step is about prioritizing objectives. What does that mean? So let's say you are able to list down 10 objectives, and during the negotiation, concessions are given. There's a give and take. You are willing to give something and you're asking for something from the other party. You have to be able to prioritize that these are the 5 things that are non-negotiable. These are things that I would not give away as a concession. Maybe the rest 5 I can one by one, maybe gradually I can give in. So prioritizing your objectives is extremely important. The sixth step is about creating options. It is also known as BATNA, B-A-T-N-A, best alternative to the negotiated agreement. What does that mean? That means you must do a proper calculation beforehand, that if your primary objective is not achieved, what is the second best level for which you are ready to settle down? Why is that important? Because you know how far you can go down. If you're not ready for that, if you've not done your homework and your calculation, you would land up with a deal which is known as WATNA, W-A-T-N-A. That is the worst alternative to the negotiated agreement. So please do your homework. If you're negotiating for your salary, if you're asking for something, do your homework as to what is the next best option that you are okay to settle down with and will still be happy with the raise that you have got, just for an example. Then the seventh step is to select fair standards. So people around you are definitely not stupid, if I may say, just like you're not stupid. They can read through, and if you're being unfair, if you're maybe cheating on something, making up facts and all, they will read that. So be fair, be transparent about your negotiation. Eighth is about examining alternatives. So if this deal doesn't come through, what is the next thing that I can be maybe working on? That is another alternative, have it ready. So if there's also known as a walkaway price. That means that also you should have worked out. It is known as WAP, WAP. That means beyond this, I am not going to negotiate, I'll walk away. So when you walk away, what is that other alternative that you have worked out? What does that do? That gives you a lot of confidence. You're not afraid during negotiation that you have nothing to fall back upon. So again, a very important aspect. The ninth step is about select your strategy, tactics and counter tactics. Now, here I want to point out, we say strategy, tactics and counter tactics. So every negotiation, a master negotiator does quite a lot of dramatics and acting. So you would have to learn, and point out later on also what are those tactics that you can use. So you will have to learn and practice some tactics just for the effect of it. I also call it almost mirch masala that you throw in during the negotiation for the effect of it, because you want to be able to influence the other party. The last step is about developing a solid and approved team negotiation plan. So this is all before negotiation. That is why when you have done all of these steps, by the end of that, the 10th step is about having a properly approved plan of action. That okay, when we enter the conference room maybe for negotiation, how are we going to go about it? So have you got those 10 steps? These are the 10 steps that you would do or follow before you go into a negotiation. The strength lies in being well prepared. if you go into a negotiation without preparation, you will just be reacting but not responding. You will be reactive, not proactive. We have to learn how to be proactive. It's a game, literally. You have to be able to make the correct moves. Now, the first step that I had mentioned to you about preparing yourself and your team, let me quickly tell you how you can empower yourself by preparing. So firstly is about set your negotiation goals. So it's like if there is no harbor to seek, every wind is the right wind. So the boat, your ship can go anywhere unless you know which harbor you want to go to. Further, realize that more realistic and reasonable your goals are, higher is the likelihood of you being able to achieve it. So don't just go in with blind expectations and unreasonable expectations. Work it out, do the math if the money is involved, and do your research, look into the background. Also, always leave room for negotiation. That means don't take a position in the beginning which is very close to what you're ready to settle for. Always keep a gap. So it pays to start higher. Now, we also talked about setting alternative goals. I've already told you about BATNA. So again, that is part of your homework of preparing yourself and your team. Thirdly, you have to be able to get to the secondary basis. What does that mean? That means everything that makes you stronger. That means if you're, let's say, asking for a raise, how can you justify that you deserve that raise? Every fact related to that, maybe your past performance, maybe some testimonials, the work that you've done, some projects, some awards, some achievements, all of this has to be cited. These are known as your secondary basis. So before you say something about what you want, have it backed up with the secondary basis, because it will build your confidence. It will make you very authentic about what you're asking for. Next is about doing your homework. What would that mean? The more number of hard facts, statistics, researches that you can quote, more authentic and powerful you come across as during the negotiation. Next, get organized. Very, very important. That means everything that you have studied, everything you have prepared, make sure that it is all filed up properly, that is easily accessible, because when you're sitting across the table for negotiation and you're so well organized, you know what to pull out from where, and you have all the right things available right there, you come across as such a controlled and powerful person, and you are able to influence the other party. Next is about be prepared who else is on your side. That means during the negotiation, let's say you need some legal advice or some discussion about legality is happening. Make sure that you have a lawyer on the standby. Keep them informed that I may be needing you. Maybe you need some medical statistics or medical opinion. Maybe you need some financial opinion. Have these people ready and prepared that I might contact you. So you are approaching the negotiation in a very good 360 approach where everything has been taken care of, and there's no reason why you will not be able to sail through it. Next is about psyching yourself up for the negotiation, because more often than not we become very nervous during negotiation. So it's important to be able to believe in yourself before somebody else believes in you. So talk to yourself, point out the strengths that you have, the power that you have, and mind you, when we talk about the power, it does not necessarily mean the power of a designation. Your power could come from maybe the disciplined way that you function in, or maybe your people skills or your strategic skills. Any of those are your power bank. Talk to yourself, point out those good things about yourself to yourself. So psych yourself up. So I have very briefly, quickly told you how to prepare yourself and your team. And before that, I have also told you about the 10 steps that you may follow before you get into a negotiation. Now, sometime back, I also mentioned about dramatics. When you're across the table in negotiation, in a planned negotiation, it helps to be able to use these tactics that I'm going to mention. These tactics are nothing but effects that you put in so as to influence the other person. So the first one is known as auction. There are many more. I'll just point out a few to you. That means you impress upon the other team, other party, that you are highly in demand or your product is highly in demand. It may or may not be. So you make it look like there are many takers for this. So you come across as very relaxed. So you may say, okay, fine, this is the thing, but even seeking a job for that matter, we can say, okay, so, I'm talking to some other organizations also. That makes you look like a person who is highly in demand. That is known as auction, where you give the impression that your product or you are highly in demand. So that is a pressure building tactic. Second is bogey. Now bogey is a very interesting tactic. You can use it where many times people don't use it. Bogey is a false call. Just like in Tambola or Housey, people, when they make a false call, people shout out bogey. It's akin to that. So what do? You pick up a topic which is not really very important to you during the negotiation and do a lot of heavy discussion around it. So that's so as to make it look very important. And then by the end of it, you give it up as a concession to the other party. What happens because of that is that the actual important issue has been ignored, as in that has not been negotiated upon. And it looks like this issue was important to you and you still gave it up. So the other party feels very victorious and completely overlooks the other aspect which is actually important to you. So you'll end up winning what you actually want because you have argued or maybe negotiated over something else. Another tactic that we can talk about maybe is the good guy, bad guy tactic, where you work as a team. So one person acts like a good guy, the other is the bad guy. The good guy is very amicable, very understanding, polite to talk to. Whereas the second person says, this is not right, I'm not going to negotiate with this party, I knew that nothing will work out with this party. And this party, the other person in the team maybe just walks out throwing a fit. And what happens because of that, when you, the good guy, gives small concessions and says, you know what, if he's upset, yeah, let's settle for this thing, the other party is very likely to agree upon what has been said. So these are few tactics that I have mentioned. There are many more, of course, and there is a lot more that negotiation can be talked about. But given the constraint of time, I think now I'll go into the questions. Here is one question. What if the person across is aggressive and is there to pull you down? Alright, so if the person is aggressive and there to pull you down, that means obviously their negotiation style is the competing style. It is about my way or highway. So you have to, if it's a momentary thing, that if they're not always like that, it is advisable for you to take the avoiding style. Avoid it. If that relationship is important, maybe it's your boss that you can't afford to upset. So maybe just avoid it for the time being. Later on, have a conversation with that person when you're not across the table and negotiating. So it's very difficult to be able to dominate a person who is aggressive across the table when you're negotiating. So my advice would be, for the time being, let the things cool down, take up the avoiding style, have a conversation with them separately, right? You can look up information about how to express assertively. So you can learn how to express without insulting or humiliating the other person, about how you feel, and you can make a request about what change you want to see in those people. Here is Rohan asking, can everyone adopt negotiation skills, or is this limited to a particular group of people? Rohan, for this I would like to, like I've said in the beginning also, it's a skill. That means it's good news for all of us. You need not be born with it. You can learn like what we've learned today. And you can practice and become a master negotiator. And that's why we're talking about how to empower the negotiator in you. So just educate yourself about negotiation, start practicing, and you'll get better and better. Next is Bhushan. Any thumb rules to improve our negotiation skills? Yes, Bhushan. If I were to say just one thumb rule, it is listening skills. You can be a master negotiator if you are able to take out as much information from the other person. For that, it is required that you listen very carefully. Information is power. Get as much information as you can. Work on your communication skill. Learn how to speak effectively. Learn how to use your body language effectively. And you can negotiate in any situation. Plus, of course, the different styles, you should be able to choose. So there is no one style which is the best. The beauty is in being able to choose from the buffet of the negotiation styles. Next I have got Sneha over here. She's asking, what role does body language play while negotiating? Sneha, you've asked a very important question. Body language plays a huge role in negotiation, just like in any communication. So be very careful about what messages are being communicated. You may be nervous, let's say, but make sure your body is not showing that. Also about body language, I also like to point out to people very often that motion evokes emotion. What does that mean? Our body is designed in such a manner, Sneha, that our body movements releases hormones in our body. So if you're making power postures, if you're sitting upright, standing tall, confidently, so your body will release adrenaline and you will feel very confident. So you will be better in negotiation. If you're slouching, if you're making yourself small and you're like nervous postures you've got, so cortisol is released in your body, which is a stress hormone. You will end up disempowering yourself even more. So body language is very important in negotiation. All communication is very important. Next we've got Nikita over here. She's asking, people tend to go in emotional aspects while negotiating. How should we avoid it? Nikita, I began in the beginning of the session when I spoke about we getting emotional. That is so true. We very easily feel attacked and we become defensive. Now, since we realize we get defensive, so please disassociate emotion with it. Take it as a game. I have just told you about 5 styles. I spoke to you about some tactics. There are many more tactics. Learn about them. Take it as a game. Don't involve your emotion. Just look at, okay, fine, maybe it's a game of chess. Now this move, now that move. You can keep changing from one style to another. Keep throwing in some tactics. Take it as a game and see the effect that your steps, your moves has on the other people. Next we've got Jayant over here. What if the opposite party is not willing to compromise during negotiation? Jayant, here you'll have to take a call upon how important is that association or relationship to you. If it's a relationship which is very important, work relation, personal relation, you would have to maybe go in for an avoiding style or an accommodating style. But if it is not so important to you and it is just harming you in the long run, how about you take the call on that and maybe disassociate? There is no point in going into the loop of communicating with somebody, and if you try and dominate that kind of a party, there will only be conflict. There is no reason why the other party would listen to you. So you'll have to evaluate how important is that association or relationship to you. So I think that's about the questions that I'm able to address today, and I would advise that you look into some books also. Maybe you can look into this book, read this book about how to negotiate effectively by David Oliver, and The Complete Negotiator by Gerard Nirenberg, who is the father of contemporary negotiation. So thank you for being here with me, and any further questions or information that you want, you can look it up on www.welingkaronline.org. And thank you for being here with me. It's been a pleasure interacting with you. Bye.